Welcome back to the channel. My name is Crawford. This is Virginia's for Lowriders. Today and this weekend, yet again, we are starting late. I have done this every weekend for the last like 2 months, and I don't know what it is. It's just house stuff and life and getting out in the garage way later than I probably should have to make a video, but it's cool. So we're getting back to letting a.d.d take the wheel, because doing a strictly just some fender well work and just some firewall work, my brain just wanders the whole time, and I just see something else, and I'm like, oh, a cat, and I run over and just easily distracted. So this weekend we're gonna feed into that. We're gonna let a.d.d do its thing. I have a lot of things in my mind that I need to get done, and I sort of want to get done, and we'll just see what happens with that. Not sure how much of it is going to get finished, but we're going to try to get some stuff done and not ramble the entire time, because I get carried away, and that's what I do. So, if you haven't seen it, go back and check it out. Last weekend we put some tubs in. Last weekend we built some stuff out of flat pieces of sheet metal to make wheel tubs for the Firewall. I need to finish up this stuff. I need to poke a hole through here for the clutch master cylinder to come through the fender. Need to finish up welding up the Firewall. There's a bunch of random tiny holes all over the place. Need to come up with something through here and trimming these guys. I did get in the mail some seam sealer. I went through my stuff. I thought I had a fresh can, and apparently I don't. And this is hard as a rock. So I bought a fresh tub. And this stuff has gone way, way up. This used to be like $20 something. It is $50 now. But it's okay. It is what it is. Too late. This, I've never really been a fan of like truck bed coating that comes in a spray can. But the last time this was here and on my last body shop truck, I decided to try this stuff out. And the spots where this hit raw metal, this stuff seeps into that metal somehow, and it does not come out. I am a firm believer in it, and it's extremely surprising. So I got 8 cans of it off the internet the other day, so we can redo the frame. I really liked the way it looked before, with everything truck coated, because it had like a semi-factory appearance, and it was a pretty tough stuff. Like, you're not just gonna go in and scratch anything. Like, it's good. That's what I'm trying to get at. I got a brand new muffler for it, because the other muffler sounded like a lawnmower, even though it's also brand new. I got some kind of exciting news about the interior this week. That's one of the things that took some of my time. I gutted the interior, pulled the seat and the door cards out, and I went and saw an interior guy. And I've never went and talked to an interior person in my life. I reached out to a buddy of mine, and he recommended a local place. I went and discussed with that man, and in 2 weeks I'm dropping all this stuff off. He already has the fabrics that I have in mind. It saddens me to redo this seat that looks so good, but everything looks great except for the driver edge is really brittle. So I think before the truck is finished, I think it's only right that everything in there is nicely done, because I got new carpet for it. So I'm going to get it recovered. I don't care if it looks factory. I just want something that's similar to something that would happen in the 80s. If you own one of these trucks and you've been to the junkyard and you've seen a bunch of these trucks, like I've had 4 of them over the years. Not saying they're all nice trucks, but I've had like 4 of them over the years. My buddy's had a couple of them. It seemed like Mazda, they put some badges on the fenders, and the badges gave you a general idea of what the package is supposed to come with in the truck. But there's 100 different types of grays in this interior, and most of them don't match. So as long as I get something in the realm of this and something that doesn't have big gaping holes in it, I'm cool with it. And I'm cool with the price the man gave me. And I've never paid to get interior stuff done, so it's kind of exciting. Hopefully it turns out good. So let's stop rambling, because we do that. If you've never been here before, expect some of that. Go back and rewatch the rest of the build, and let's try to ADD our way through something. I don't know what we're going to do first. Oh, see, here we go again. I pulled the rails off the bottom of the seat. They are here. I have an idea, because everybody's so concerned with traditional body drops, even though you're only losing 1.5 inches of floor in the back. I have an idea of how to modify this stuff to where I get all my legroom back. So we're going to do that. That way, if anybody wants to try to tackle a traditional body drop, but they keep reading on Google that it's the devil and it's not okay, we're going to make it okay. I promise. There's enough room in this little bracket and enough room in that floor that we can get at least 1.5 inches or so back. Pretty close to it. I'm pretty confident we can get most of the, yeah. Let's just do some work. All right, we got the seat bracket. This is where a.d.d took us. We got the seat bracket bolted in place, and if you measure it out, just a hair over 1.5 inches, or just a hair over 1/2 inch. If you measure the rear of the body drop, we're looking at 1.1 inches or so. You come up here to the front of the body drop, we're looking at about 1.25 inches. So this was level with that piece that I'm talking. So you could probably add 1/8 of an inch or so to that measurement. It doesn't really matter. We're getting it close. So this hovers. My ideas on this is trying not to cut the floor as much as possible. We come in here, we cut this whole lip off the top of this. These two pieces are riveted together with a rivet here and a rivet there. Cut this off, clean this, weld this to the rail because it's already attached, so it really doesn't matter. Take the rivets out. Once I do all of that, this piece will come down 1/2 inch or so. So then I really only need to come up with 3/4 to 1 inch of getting this bolt lower. So it won't be as much notching into that as I thought. Since we only need 1.16 inches, 1.125 or so back here, we have roughly about 2 inches of bracket before this would touch that bolt. So we can easily take 1 inch out of this, 1.25 inches even, give us a little lean back on the seat, and a little bit of a lean equals more booty room, basically. My buddy James came over. I sat in the seat. My head doesn't touch the ceiling. He sat in the seat. His head touches the ceiling. We're roughly the same height, and we figured out I ain't got enough ass to hold my pants up. He's got a little bit more meat on his bones, so just that alone makes the truck uncomfortable for him, but not for me. So I think if I just gave the measurement back to the seat bracket that we took out of the floor, everything would be fine because he has plenty of leg room. Yeah, let's just start cutting some stuff, I guess. Just in case you were wondering if lowering the seat would then touch the trans tunnel, because that's the only low thing, because this stuff is like literally inches from the ground. If you take a straight edge and you come across the mounting points, there's a whole lot of room in between here to here. Way more than 1.25 inches or 1.5 inches. So we'll be fine on that part. I was gonna lay this in there straight, but I got a little gap up there because of the plastic. So even if you took that gap out, there is still a ton of room there and a ton of room through here. So we're good on that part. It is another day. So last night I was out here for probably way too long, but I did make some progress. This is where we got notched this down, lowered this, ended up re-drilling the hole for the bolt to be able to utilize the fact that we trimmed this. This is shorter, and as you can see, between the guy that was on there and what we got now, this is significantly taller. I think we got about an inch out of it. I don't know if it's quite exactly the inch and a quarter or whatever we were looking for, but it's a good bit. So any bit is more leg room. So now we need to duplicate this over there or get straight away and do something else. I'm not sure. We'll see. Alright, these guys are done, and they match, and they still appear to be factory, so I'm going to call that good. I'm not going to waste the time with y'all watching me do this little corner thing again, because I recorded it on that, just not the grinding and metal finishing part. But I'm going to cut that corner off sometime this week, lower it down, and do the same deal. Now, where does a.d.d. want to take us? Maybe we can mess with this. I'm going to cut this out, because that needs to be removed. I need to hammer and dolly this a little bit to get it a little smoother. This, let me see if I can do this with one hand. The reservoir for this just comes out, so I can get this guy with a little bit of finagling. Actually, I have to trim that just a little bit to get that in there now. It doesn't quite fit. So I'm going to get this set in place, mark up to the top. I know it's kind of weird this isn't the wheel well, but there's no way to put this in and match that side and still have room. If I put this in here any lower, the fender tub would have ran directly into it, which I felt like was kind of weird. So it's hidden, so I don't think it looks too terrible. I'm gonna notch right there just a little bit, get this guy set in there, mark up, and trim that. I'm gonna come up with a way to where it looks finished. I think that's what we're gonna do. Cut that, pop a hole in there, figure out how to make that look pretty. After this is cut and that's all done, this circle thing that I showed y'all last week that I can't seem to hold on to, there it is. I gotta figure out how to remake this into that piece of sheet metal that I make for that. Let's do something in that range. Well, I was going to attempt to put a dimple die in the top of that so it looked a little bit more finished. But my dimple dies that fit that size hole are way too big. There's just no way for it to go in there. So I'm going to cut the hole with a knockout punch just so it looks clean and not jagged. Hopefully I get in the right spot the first time so I don't have to clean it up with a burr bit or something. Probably should have thought about this before, yeah, but it's cool. We're figuring it out. Fingers crossed. Did I get it centered? Pretty much. I gotta oblong it a little bit because of this going straight up in there and this going at a curve the opposite way. It has to be oblong for it to work correctly, but it don't look too bad so far. It is sitting there. I don't have a bolt on it right now or a nut, but it's even all the way around. It's kind of hard to tell because the shadows kind of throw it off in the camera, but I don't know. It don't look too bad. There's no possibility of chafing or anything like that. I've still got a little room to put the line in, so I'm gonna call that good. Kind of thinking I don't feel like messing with this yet. At least maybe the circle part, but this needs to be trimmed because I left them long. And when you look down in the fender or underneath the hood, it looks kind of goofy. So I need to trim both sides of those. Come up with a way to transition from here to here. I don't know. Might do something like this. like round it off and then maybe fill in the gap with a little piece, maybe. Thought about also rolling it over just on the end so it'll come down and gradually roll towards this material. I don't know. We're gonna figure that part out. I need to remake this thing, which is just a raised lip so that where the grommet catches it as it comes through it. I was debating on just basically cutting a hole, hammering it towards the edge, and just finishing it with a hammer. But I think to speed that process along, I got a couple knockout kits here. So this thing is roughly just a hair bigger than that guy. So that one won't work. Have to go for the next size down, which is like just on the size of that. So I'm gonna knock this out with the knockout punch, dimple die it, and then try to cut the perimeter of the dimple die off and use the flared portion. Not sure if it's gonna work, but that's what I'm gonna try. So while I was attempting to make that, planning on removing just that little lip, I was thinking about this dimple die. It's almost the same shape as the grommet for the Firewall. I have a feeling that that grommet might actually hold itself. So, a whatever size that is, 2.5 inch or 2-inch dimple die fits that perfectly and actually looks kind of nice. It's locked in there, has the same taper, so I think I'm going to call that good, and I don't have to make that little circle thing. And now I just need to trim this to where it fits into that. And I went through, cut all that out, cleaned up all the metal, flattened this, flanished this a little bit more. Now I got to make a template. Something, again, basic idea of it. Doesn't have to be exact. I got a template that fits pretty well. I gotta transfer that over to... Alright, I'm gonna take the template, just transfer it over, put the basic stuff here. Make sure I got this thing facing the right way. I want to put it pretty close to the top, have it sorta-ish centered. I believe that'll work. Just gotta weld that in, seam seal it, paint it, be ready to go. Alright, let's do something else. That can be welded in whenever. I don't have to see me do that because it's almost no metal finishing it. I don't know. Maybe I'll do that by the end of the night. I'm going to trim this. I took the other one, this one, started to flare the end out. I'm going to take it over to the bench flatten that. So it'll be, instead of that being such a harsh cut away from this material, if I can roll that edge over all the way and have it taper, like I said earlier, it might look good. So I'm gonna play with this cutoff piece, see if I can make it look nice, and then if I can make this to where I think it'll look good, I'll transfer that into both of these guys. So I was holding it up here to try to get an idea, which you can't really tell because this is rounded over. Got the other cutoff piece. It'll be like that. So real gradual flaring. I don't know. I'm not totally sold on it, but I don't think it looks bad. Alright, I'm just gonna do it. Hopefully it looks good. I think the only way I can make it match is before I start, pick an imaginary line of where I want the flare to begin. So, imaginary line. This is actually the same depth as the width as the fender, so I'll transfer that line over to the other side and they'll both start the curve in the same spot. It is Sunday. Yesterday we got some pretty good progress done. I didn't explain every single thing I was doing. I was just kind of on a roll, and then the camera died and I didn't notice again, and I was just trying to get it done. But this turned out pretty cool. It's kind of hard to tell in camera, but it worked the way thought it would. So we come over and then it slowly curls and actually looks finished. Kind of hard to tell all the work that I put into it, but I think it turned out pretty nice. Another thing I did, which I tried to record, I'm not sure if I could actually see it that well, went through and radiused both sides of this. And that also turned out pretty good. Trimmed these guys nice and even all the way around. Trimmed all of this all the way around. Still got to figure out the corners for there. I got that done, and then I bounced around and bounced back over here and got this guy welded in and partially metal worked, so I think it's good enough to just get seam sealed, because you will literally never see that. Nobody will. Got that trimmed. So let's see where a.d.d takes us. Let's see what happens. My buddy's here. We're gonna put the first coat of paint on his skid steer, even though it's way too cold outside. That way it can leave my yard hopefully next weekend after we get the other color on, weather permitting. So he's wiping that down right now so we can spray it. So a little intermission for that guy, and I'll get back on this. Try and knock some stuff out. Trying to edit this and get it to y'all so that the East Coast guys can watch it before 1 o'clock in the morning. Because I'm an East Coast guy and I don't get done uploading till 1. Oh yeah, enough rambling. Just go do something. I hear stuff running out here, so maybe he's almost ready. So one thing I need to do before everything gets seam sealed and painted is I bought these little tabs offline. I found a guy that laser cuts these. I got these tiny little ones, and I got some that are a little bit taller. These are made to be welded on to a flat surface, and then they're the same size as a zip tie, so where you would weld these every so often, and it gives you a perfect mounting to zip tie, like a wiring harness too. So basically, you get the idea, something like that. So I believe harness is going to come out of here. I don't really have that much room in here. There's going to be, the fender doesn't sit flat on there. There's a little bit of a hump up here, so I think if I welded these guys here, even if the harness hung down a little bit, the tire is never going to get close to this. These are way higher than the actual wheel itself is going to be, so maybe something like that. Yeah, so I think we're going to put some of these guys in some places. So I set the fender and the wheel on there. This is lower than the truck would be if it was laid out by like 1.5 to 2 inches or so. So I know that if I set it up for this, there's no way that the wire would ever touch. But this is what I was talking about. There's this cavity in here because this is 3/4 of an inch higher than this. So that gives me enough room. All of this room in here, it's kind of hard to see in camera, to work with. So if I was to weld maybe the tabs up here and put the harness above this guy to hold it in place, there's no way it'll ever touch. I will be making some inner fenders. I think I want to make them out of some kind of
thin plastic, almost like a factory fender on a newer car, not out of steel. That way it's easily removable and repairable. So I think for now, a couple here, and then as it gets closer to the frame, I'll probably put them maybe inboard. Do that real quick. This is a welding spoon. It is a piece of copper soldered onto a handle. These used to be like $8 at Harbor Freight. And I definitely remember that because I bought a bunch of them over the years, because eventually they just burn up and they're trash. Those are expensive now. So this is a alternate solution. This is a random piece of copper tubing of some sort with a jacked up end on it, wrapped in a piece of hose and some electrical tape. It serves the same purpose, and it didn't cost me anything. It's a bunch of scrap. So if you've never done this before, it's pretty straightforward. Welding with mild steel welding wire. It will, of course, attach itself to mild steel, but if you put this as a backer behind here, it will not stick to this and it will not push this out of the way. So if you hold this on the back and you hit that with the welder, on the back side it'll be flush, and on the top side it'll just be the weld. And you do that all the way across, and that way you have very little grinding and you don't have a bunch of slag and nastiness hanging down behind that. So try and find you a scrap piece of copper. Brass works too. Wrap it in some junk and you have a free version of this. That's it. The hose is necessary unless you want to burn your hand, because this thing gets hot quick. This is why I say to wrap it in a hose. It's cooling pretty quickly, but it was at 333 when I first put it on there. Go check on the progress of this guy out here. That tractor paint has a really weird smell to it. You know, they're like beans or something. Alright, next on the list. I gotta start writing stuff down. I got a list in the house of things I need to do. I need to write down detailed things to where I'm not tackling full big projects at a time and I can do the small stuff, because there's like 1,000 things to do. But whenever you're standing here trying to figure out the next step, it doesn't really work out all the time. I need to do the back of the cab. I'm kind of procrastinating on that because I really don't feel like messing with it. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Alright, so the harness, just down there, it's going to come up through here, around here. Initially, I had it running through here last time it was here, but I'm stripping the harness down as much as it can possibly go to where hopefully the only thing that's up here is the headlight harness, and then I'm going to run the other stuff behind the engine. There's a small hole already in the firewall that I will be tying this plug into, which there's really not that much going on here. Most of this is alternator related, oil pressure, and temperature. There's not really much left on this because it's carbureted now, so most of that stuff's unneeded. So that harness, by the time it actually comes out of here, is going to be pretty small. So this is unnecessarily large. I have some of these grommets. It's just a cheap set off Amazon. I found the ones that are already holes don't seem like they're as thick. These you just cut the center out after you install it. I believe I'll be running this up here, so this tab probably wasn't necessary, but it's cool. I think I'm going to run this up here, that way the harness can run completely hidden underneath this, and the only thing that you'll actually see is a small wire going down to the headlight and to the marker light. So I'm going to pop a hole in here for that, get that all filed and cleaned up, and this set in there. That way sometime this week I'll be picking up primer, and there was something else I was supposed to buy. At least primer. I'm going to try and get all this stuff seam sealed. That seam sealer can be painted within an hour, so it doesn't really matter what time I do that. I'll record it still. So I'll be priming, seam sealing, metal finishing, all of that, and then hopefully painting that stuff before next weekend. At least the front portion and the tubs. Not necessarily the firewall. It's all rattle can stuff, so it can be done in stages. It doesn't have to be all at once. That way I can get the bumper set back on and start mocking up some other stuff I have in mind. I can get the radiator in, start figuring out. I still need to go get this belt. There's a lot of stuff. So stop rambling about that. Pop that hole in there real quick. Get that finished up. In that time lapse, I went through and filled these holes and ground them down. All of this is nicely metal finished all the way across, so that's going to be smooth. Same thing there. I had to go back and hit a couple spots here again. It's coming together. We're making pretty decent progress, even though it's all over the place. Stop rambling. That's what I got to do. Stop rambling, drill a hole, and it's probably going to be it, because I am running out of time. Yet again, it is Sunday night, and I haven't edited anything. Yeah, it's great. Here we go. New hole next to old hole, but this one will allow me to get my wires nice and tucked in there. I know it doesn't really make sense because I'm shaving all these little tiny holes. I still want the factory-ish appearance. I'm going to leave the big ones because they match on both sides and it doesn't really bother me. I'm just shaving all the random holes that this thing comes with from random options and stuff that this doesn't have. I still want that stockish appearance, but modified at the same time. Pop the hood. Besides the fender tubs, you're not immediately like taken back like this is standard mini truck and stuff. It's kind of in the middle. I don't know what I'm trying to get at here, but hopefully it makes sense. All right, I think that's going to do it for tonight and this weekend. If I don't go inside right now, I probably won't go to bed till like 2 a.m. So pretty good progress. We did fender well mods,
shaved, filled some holes, popped a hole in for the clutch master, came up with some filler panels for here, some zip tie mounts, some grommet holes, some modified seat brackets, modified floor, trimmed the fenders, and came up with a game plan for some stuff. So I'll try to pick up some primer this week, and we'll get this thing taped up and seam sealed, and hopefully get some paint on a few things, get the radiator in place, and get a game plan for the hoses for that. There's going to be probably a full day of wiring. I don't know how exciting that's going to be to watch me do that, so I'll try to make that not 100% boring. Maybe. I don't know how that's going to work, but yeah, pretty good progress for the weekend. If you've never been here before, make sure you subscribe, do all the normal YouTube stuff, and I'll see y'all next week.